Welcome back to r/LegalAdvice, where people ask questions, get advice, and we get satisfaction. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is from r/LegalAdvice Australia, and it is titled "Removing an Unregistered Car from My Property." Victoria, southeastern Australia. So the story goes, I allowed a former friend to have her unregistered, unroadworthy car towed from her ex-husband's property to mine because she is not allowed to be within a certain distance of him or his house. It was towed to my house approximately a month ago for the purpose of being somewhere she could collect it without violating any IVOs. Note, she has the keys and lives approximately 3 hours away. The car is currently locked. For various reasons, I now want the car gone, but I am having trouble finding information regarding how much notice I need to give her to remove it. I have told her I want it gone. The car is probably only worth scrap value, but it has a few boxes of her clothing and other low value items locked inside. I am unsure if value is relevant or not. The place where the car is parked is technically body corporate owned space, although it is in my guest parking spot. So my main questions are, how much notice do I have to give her? Is text/messenger sufficient if I can show that it has been read? Can I have the council tow the car if she doesn't collect it because it is on common property? Or would I have to organize the towing? If the latter, could I in theory have it towed to the park across the street and leave it there? Thank you in advance. And a user in the comments said, not a lawyer, but if it was me, I would give her a week to have the car moved. You could organize the body corporate to have it towed, since it is on their property. Just call them and explain that your visitor parked there and is refusing to move it, so they can please tow it so your actual guests can use the park. Tell your friend that the body corporate have asked you to move the car, and if it is not moved by XX date, they will have it towed. And another user said, I was sort of in the same situation. I gave him 2 weeks notice and kept a record of the conversation. He tried to take legal action against me, but I was told I gave sufficient notice. And another user said, depends where in Australia you are. You have entered into what would be called a gratuitous bailment by accepting the car, possession, with no expectation of reward or payment. In this case, it is very hard to go through with the disposal of goods. However, by the sounds of it, the car is not actually on your property. If it is in a public car spot and unregistered, you can easily call your local council to have it removed. If it is in your compound or private parks, it makes it hard again, as technically they could get it towed or you could. But you/they would be paying for removal and storage of the car and cannot request payment or monies owed by the car's owner. Crappy acts/laws protect a-holes a lot of the time, and there's nothing we can do about it. Update to the unregistered car on property story. So the time to collect the car and my patience ran out, and no communication from the owner. I spoke to quite a few organizations in regards to my situation and learned some things which may be helpful to anyone else that finds themselves in a similar predicament. Police non-emergency line. Could not give any particular advice aside from sympathetic noises, but suggested I speak to my local cop shop, as well as pointed me to legal aid for more specific information. And by the way guys, I've never heard the term local cop shop. Maybe that's an Australian thing or something, I'm not sure. Next, legal aid. After being on hold for what felt like an eternity, I was advised that they did not know what my rights/obligations were either. They did text me through the contact details of a property lawyer or something, but I did not contact them. Next, the local council. They advised that they could not help because the car was on private property. I knew this already but was hopeful. Next, the local police said I certainly could remove the car from my property, yay, but could not give further info as to where exactly the car should go. They offered to send an officer out to take the details of the car, but I declined as I didn't want to waste their time. Body corporate advised that they could not move the car because they could be liable for theft. Total BS if you ask me. Next, the local tow truck company. This was actually the most helpful of the bunch. He advised that if I were able to get the car unlocked, the easiest, read cheapest option would be to push the car onto council property under the cover of darkness. He said that tow truck companies won't tow the car to a public parking lot and leave it there, as they can be fined by the council for dumping trash. They can also be liable for theft. He said he would be able to tow the car even being locked, however it can only go from one private property to another, has to be accepted at the destination and cannot be put on the curb in front of a property, has to go on to the property. Although one cheap, dodgy and ultimately the one I booked tow company I contacted did offer to pay me $50 and make the car disappear. After trying and failing to think of a friend with a large rural property and space for a paddock bomb, I ended up contacting the owner's ex-husband. He was annoyed but accepted to have the car back there. So yay, result and lesson learned, don't do favors for a-holes with crappy cars. And ripe stars, or in case you are not a ripe star yet and want to become one, I would encourage you to subscribe to the channel because I post daily Reddit content and I would be infinitely happy to have you as a new subscriber. In addition, please don't forget to, as usual, post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled Scared to go outside because of my neighbor. I am 7 months pregnant and I have a 2-year-old in Virginia. My neighbor and I used to talk a lot. Over the winter months that gradually declined. In my naivety I thought it was because of being cold out, etc. But nope. Apparently my neighbor thinks I turned him into the HOA for a covenants violation that resulted in him having to sell his truck. I did not turn him in. He thinks it was me because I do in fact volunteer for the HOA as a member of a volunteer committee. Our committee is responsible for the look and the appeal of common grounds. We don't give two craps about homeowner lawns or how they look though. He has been ignoring us completely until Thursday. My son accidentally knocked a watering can into his backyard. I tried to get it back by knocking on his door, but he did not answer. The next day the watering can was back on our deck, the spout had been cut off and the pail had been stabbed with a knife several times. I called the cops and they filed a complaint. Saturday night he got drunk, started yelling at someone over at his house and then started yelling at me, calling me a witch, calling my husband an army piss-ass, saying that I know what I did. I called the cops, they talked to him and he went back into his house. The cops filed a complaint. Sunday night, similar thing, he got drunk, he went outside and started yelling at me, calling me a bitch, saying my son defaced public property with his chalk, saying, I know what I did. Egging me on to come outside, hitting his own car. I called 911, 6 cop cars came and after 20 minutes of him yelling and arguing, they took him in for drunk and disorderly conduct. I am now very scared. I am at home all day by myself with my very young son. My neighbor works from home, so he is also home all day. I have contacted my HOA to see if they will clear my name or provide legal counsel. Since I'm a volunteer, we live in a townhome, so I literally share a wall with this person. On the advice of the deputies who came last night, I am filing for a protective order today, but I'm asking myself, will this really make me feel better? Is there any other legal course of action I can take? I want to move just to get out of the situation, but again, I am 7 months pregnant and my pregnancy has been complicated. I have literally been sick this whole time. I see 3 doctors just for my pregnancy. And I don't know if I can move before the baby comes. I have to deliver a month early due to complications. Thanks for reading. Update: thanks for everyone's help with this. I was granted an emergency protective order today. This lasts for 72 hours. Tomorrow I am going to my district court to file a petition for a preliminary protective order. This lasts for 15 days and there's a hearing where my neighbor will not be present. After that there's another hearing where my neighbor will be present, and if I win, I don't know if this is the right word, I will get a 2-year protective order. And a user in the comments said, I would suggest putting up some cheap surveillance cameras to document any further incidents. If you do have another incident, wait until he is sober and tell him his harassment will result in a lawsuit if it continues and that the stress might be harmful to your baby. If all else fails, stay with a friend or a relative for a while. Drunks are very hard to deal with, sometimes. Whatever else you do, if he ever comes onto your property, call the police immediately, even if he is calm. And even if the protective order has not gone through yet, don't open the door for him. That is probably obvious, but don't. And guys, since this is such an old story, I tried to do some further research, but I did not get that far. I just saw some further comments of the OP which indicated that she indeed won in court and got the 2-year protective order. And the next one is titled, Chesterfield, got pulled over for the first time, got my first speeding ticket and have my first ever court date coming up. Apologies in advance for lots of noob questions. It's a very sad day. I got my first ever speeding ticket. I am 21 years old and I've had a spotless driving record for the past 5 years. My ticket was for going 50 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour zone in Chesterfield County, Virginia. I was driving 50 miles per hour on a road with a 45 miles per hour speed limit, and then the speed limit dropped to 35 miles per hour, less than 0.1 miles past the sign. The cop spotted me and pulled me. It was an ordinary traffic stop. He was respectful and courteous. I was quiet and cooperative. I was actually on the way home to visit my family that visited to watch me graduate from college summa cum laude yesterday. Such a generous graduation gift, huh? I'm just disappointed in the circumstances because this offense occurred at 11:45 p.m. on a clear night on an empty road, and it was immediately after the speed limit changed. I did not even get a chance to reduce my speed and I was not endangering anyone's safety. Also, the location of the arrest is slightly incorrect. It is off by about 2 blocks. But however, when it comes down to it, I was guilty of speeding and I take full responsibility for it. None of the previously mentioned facts changed that. I am assuming that the judge won't care about any of this stuff. Is that right? Now, with all of that being said, my only goal is to avoid financial hardship for myself and my family. Given the previously mentioned circumstances, I am a broke 21-year-old college student and I am ashamed to admit that I don't have any income right now. I am starting graduate school at a very prestigious #1 ranked school in August, but I won't have any income until then. My mom, who's a single mom raising 2 kids, pays my insurance bill and she was 100% innocent. Such a generous Mother's Day gift too, huh? I don't want her to have to suffer for my mistake through highly increased insurance rates due to the points that would be added to my record. I currently have a +5 driving score, the best you can get in Virginia, and this would lower me to a +1, where -18 in 1 year lead to a suspended license for 90 days. Okay, anyways. I have never been to court before. I know I can plead guilty, not guilty or no contest. I know I was guilty, but I want to request driving school and or a reduced fine. So when they ask me what my plea is, which of the 3 options do I say to the person? Can I say not guilty even if I am guilty? Do I need to hire a lawyer for this, or is it not worth the expense and the trouble? Do I have to call the insurance company and tell them about this now, or do I have to call them after the court date? Or does the court system /DMV do that? Also, who else am I obligated to tell about this ticket? Does financial hardship play any role in this at all, or no? I've heard all the stories about tickets being dismissed due to cops not showing up, judges' leniency, or any other various reasons. If I pled guilty, am I missing out on these chances? If I pled not guilty and I am called to the stand, is it too late to change my plea to guilty? If I do get driving school, does that dismiss the ticket from my insurance record? Am I totally screwed? Did I screw over my family long term? I am content with paying a one-time fine for my mistake, but I could not live with causing her long-term financial harm. And a user in the comments said, well, before the trial date, send a certified letter to the police station using your citation number, asking them for all pertinent and exculpatory evidence they possess regarding your case, including the report. If the report says he used radar to determine your speed, be sure to specify that you would like the maintenance logs of the radar device in question. If he says he uses a calibrated speedometer, make sure you request the maintenance logs for the vehicle. Most states have a statute that says the maintenance needs to be completed on X number of days. Request that the maintenance technician who performed the calibration can be present to testify as to the validity of his calibrations. They probably won't even provide the calibration logs, and you can use that to get out of the speeding ticket. The important thing is giving them enough notice, usually a month, to respond and then say that they failed to provide evidence at your court hearing. And ripe stars, to me it seems that person in the comments must be very experienced with speeding tickets. How is it for you where you are from? Are cops very likely to give you speeding tickets? I think here in Thailand, just recently the police in some cities actually introduced speed cameras, but for a long time you could drive however you want here essentially. But then again, honestly, at least from my opinion, and I have quite a few kilometers here in Thailand under my belt, speed-wise people don't drive that crazy over here. Sometimes in Europe people definitely drive faster. Update on my 50 in 35 speeding ticket. About a month and a half ago I made a post about my first speeding ticket. Looking back on what I wrote, my excuses and reasons were totally ridiculous. I was 100% guilty and I should have taken responsibility for it. I think I was just frustrated since I posted here immediately after getting stopped. I just wanted to give a noob's perspective on a first-time court experience and provide an update for any future searchers. I don't have any questions to ask. Anyway, I finally had my court date today. It was my first ever setting foot in a courtroom. I walked in and there were about 100 to 150 people there. First they called the names of all the people requesting continuances, then the people with lawyers got to go next, and then after that they called people that were requesting driving school. They called up each officer and all the people that they ticketed that wanted driving school. That is when they called my name along with 6 to 8 other poor saps in the same boat as me. They all got 50/35 tickets, and I'm going to guess that they were all in the same spot as me, because I've since seen the same cop in the same spot 2 other times after my ticket. They called my name and asked if I wanted to plead no contest in exchange for driving school, and I said yes. The judge asked if I was polite and if anything unusual happened. The officer said yes and no. They gave it to me, handed me a piece of paper and told me to leave. I was on the stand for about 15 to 30 seconds. It seemed to me like they wanted people to get in, pay their fine and get out so they could get through everyone as quickly as possible. In Chesterfield, Virginia, if you pay court costs $62 and complete driving school within 2 months, they dismiss all the charges and fines, and you can do that once every 5 years. I will pay $45 to go to a driving school hosted by a lady that is married to a coworker and close friend of my mom's, so that I can help support her newly started business. Then I will move on with my life and not speed again and learn from my mistake. The main reason I wanted to submit this post is to give a PSA to any other speeders out there like me. Don't do it, don't speed. It may not be today or tomorrow or even the next day, but eventually they are gonna catch you. And once the officer's pen hits the paper, it is over. Done deal, the officer will show up to court and the judge is not going to care that the radar was not calibrated or that you were late or that you had to use the restroom really badly. He/she has heard them all before and it won't help you. You won't be able to get out of it. The law does not discriminate. Everybody gets a ticket and has to go through this eventually. And while I think justice is important to the court, speeding tickets are more about business than justice, and if you believe it is the other way around, I've got oceanfront property in Nebraska to sell you. And one final thing I wanted to share, if you do end up fighting a ticket or going to court for something else, please use common sense. Dress nicely, say please and thank you, only use polite G-rated language, stand up straight, speak clearly, and don't use any slang. If you do that, you would be better than 80% of the people I saw at court today. People had badly sagging pants, cursed in front of officers and attorneys, kept saying, "Oh yeah," instead of "yes, your honor," and one guy had to be restrained and handcuffed by the bailiff for being belligerent about something. So by not doing that, you're already in good shape. I thought for sure that would have been common sense, but I was mistaken. And the last one is a non-legal advice bonus story from r/ripe stories. posted by user Peachy Pumpkin Skinny. It is titled, "Remember the public right of way when topless sunbathing." When I was a kid in the 70s, I lived on top of a cliff by the ocean on New Zealand's northeast coast. 3 plots down from our house, there were steps cut into the side of the sandstone cliff, so one could go up to the top of the cliff from the beach or down to the beach from the top of the cliff. The steps had been there forever, it seemed, and there was a right-of-way that essentially made it impossible for whoever lived in the beach on that land to prevent access. A young couple moved in. They were renters and unaware of the right-of-way. The young woman, like the rest of the world back then, was unaware of the hole in the ozone layer. She decided that now that she had a backyard, she would sunbathe in it while topless. Of course, there being a right-of-way that kids traverse to get to the beach, soon she was being oogled by a pair of young brothers. She caught them peeping when she heard someone in the bushes by the back. She held her bikini top to her chest and went over the bushes to look. To her horror, she found a pair of 10 and 11-year-old boys looking at her, binoculars in hand. She started screaming, they ran, she continued screaming, and her husband ran across the street to go after the dad. The neighborhood heard all about it. For a while, the neighborhood was split over who was in the right, the kids or the topless lady. But soon we all decided that although it had been bad of the boys to stare, the lady had to accept that there was a decades-old right-of-way in what she considered her own backyard and that she had no right to stop people from using it. And by the way guys, I feel so stupid, I just figured out what a badge, aka BACH, is. Apparently in New Zealand that is a sort of little holiday house. Anyway, the owner of the badge found a solution and soon a fence of opaque corrugated plastic went up. The length of the backyard was shortened, but there could be no more spying from the bushes. The brothers climbed trees to spy, but soon reported back the disappointing news that although the lady was still sunbathing, she no longer did it topless. Had she continued, she most likely would have had a case of skin cancer on her breasts in a short amount of time. It is actually quite a shocking thought, as a man down the street died from skin cancer complications a few years later. 44 years later, I hope she is over the nasty surprise enough to be relieved. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.